Welcome into another episode of Always Talking Ball. Tyler Noe, Lance Barton. Next on the list of Power Four Conference previews is the place where they say it just means more. That's right. It's the Southeastern Conference. Questions will be answered on this episode and during the season. What can we realistically expect from Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns this season? Will Georgia rebound to defend its crown? Will Alabama reclaim its spot at the top? And who are some teams that, maybe if you were talking about could sneak into the championship picture, a la Texas A&M and South Carolina last season. Plus, we'll give you some win totals bets to place to hopefully win you a little Christmas shopping money when they cash in late November. Lance, speaking of spending some money, let everyone know about our partners at Frost Buddy.
Guys, seriously, we all know that we all want to keep our drinks cold. Like when we're tailgating, when football season's right around the corner, when we're watching games, sitting there with about 4 TVs rolling and watching multiple games at once. We're out there grilling, smoking some meat, or it's still summertime. You're out there on the lake or the pool, going to the beach or something. We all want to keep our beverages cold, and nothing does that more than Frost Buddy. You can go right now to frostbuddy.com/ATB. That's frostbuddy.com/ATB. Or you can look at that beautiful QR code there at the top right of the screen. It'll take you straight to frostbuddy.com. Check out all of their different Frost Buddies that they've got. These are like koozies that, again, keep your drinks cold, and they're universal. You can have a 12-ounce can. You can have a slim can like a seltzer or a Mick Ultra. You can have just regular soft drinks. You can have beer bottles, and you can have energy drinks. Literally, it's universal. All of those fit into one. And we're talking about the SEC today. They've got Alabama. They've got Tennessee. They've got LSU. They've got multiple teams throughout the SEC, and they've also got teams all across college sports, professional sports, and different like patriotic themes, USA themed and stuff. Go check them out, frostbuddy.com/ATB, or hit that QR code. And after you check out, this is really cool. They will give you a 30% discount basically towards your next purchase. They'll give you a 30% discount towards your next purchase on frostbuddy.com. So go check it out.
As you can see, joining us today from SEC Unfiltered. Honestly, man, we love Chris and everybody over there, but this is a man who is not afraid to give a scorching hot take or two. You can find him on X at Mr. Cole Thompson. It's Cole Thompson. Welcome into the show, buddy.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not, boys. Like, if I'm giving scorching hot takes, that either means I'm right on the money or I am dead wrong and I'm going to be on freezing cold takes tomorrow. But no, I love your show, guys. I really do. Like, when you guys reached out, I was beyond excited to come on. I'm always for independent podcasters that continuously want to see this platform grow. And you guys have been one of my favorite listens in the last month or so. So for anybody that checks out SEC Unfiltered, make sure that you guys follow the Always Talking Ball podcast. They do great work over here. That's so awesome when small worlds collide. Tyler loves Notre Dame. My grandfather and I grew up in a Notre Dame household. Mm-hmm. And Lance was at the same bar that I probably was in 2015 in Tuscaloosa. So you never know how lives pass and path. Let's rephrase that. You never know how lives will cross paths. Lo and behold, that's how you get the Always Talking About SEC Unfiltered collaboration.
Yep. Let's get into talking about the SEC, man. All right, let me talk to you about the little guy. Okay, I'm gonna really test your SEC knowledge, and I mean, guys, if you aren't tuning into SEC Unfiltered, like these guys know SEC ball. Okay, they were the giant killers last year. Okay, yes, that's right. I'm talking about the Vanderbilt Commodores.
Oh yeah,
okay?
Here we go. Yes, this one.
I mean, over under win total of 4.5. Have you guys watched Any Given Saturday on Netflix? Which, by the way, features our guy Cole here and the rest of the guys at SEC Unfiltered. They are the number one team in the SEC in returning production. They rebuilt that entire offensive line to help the run game. I'm taking the over 4.5 because this is just a bet on Diego Pavia. Just the way that Clark Lee has transformed his alma mater into a team that you now have to be worried about going to Nashville and playing them a little bit after what they did to Alabama last year. And that's what one game can change the face of a program. It could change the trajectory of a program like that. Yeah, they weren't that solid in the 2 deep last year. So down the stretch, they faltered, losing 4 of the last 5 games. I mean, one was a 3-point loss to Texas at home, and one was a 7-point loss on the road in Baton Rouge. Like, they're not terrible Vandy losses like they've had in the past. They get Chuck South, they get Utah State, and they get a revenge game. Think about that, a revenge game against Georgia State at home this year to start off the year. So should be 3 W's right there. Kentucky at home in November. I'm counting that as a W. I think Kentucky's in for a rough year this year. So you got 4 wins right there. All you got to do is find one more win. Now, the chances of them winning at South Carolina, at Alabama, at Texas, or at Tennessee, they're very slim. Let's be honest. It's still Vanderbilt. Okay. Could they win week 2 at Virginia Tech?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Could they beat one of LSU, Missouri, or Auburn at home? Abso-freaking-lutely. So I'm taking Vandy over 4.5 all day. What say you, Cole?
Hammer in the over. Lance, by the way, did you fill out your ballot this past year when Baba Yaga decided to go take over as the new governor of the state of Alabama? Because that's the rule, is that when you're a Vanderbilt quarterback and you beat both teams from the Yellowhammer State, Kay Ivey, get out of the office. Like, I'm sorry, like, it's no longer your office. Like, he owns you, quite literally. What's so funny is I call him Baba Yaga, and the reason I call him that is, have you ever seen? You guys have seen John Wick, right?
Oh yeah.
So, in the scene where Vigo's talking to his son and he's like, we don't call him John Wick. We call him Baba Yaga. And it's like, the boogeyman? No. He's sent in to kill the boogeyman. And like, the boogeyman for years has been Alabama. And now he killed the boogeyman. So like, that's why I call him Baba Yaga. So if you ever hear me reference that, that's the reason it's his nickname, because of he truly did kill everyone's biggest threat in the SEC. And he did it in a stadium that was his backyard that looked like it was Bryant-Denny South, the Bryant-Denny North. Like, that's what it was. Their roster is really intriguing to me because of everyone kind of knows what to expect this year with Diego Pavia. And I just wonder about that wide receiver room. Now, the good news is that they have a Marshall Height, who is one of their defensive backs. I think he's the outside corner. He is actually going to be playing both sides of the ball this year. So he announced at SEC Media Days he's going to be a big wide receiver factor, which is good because of my main question for Vanderbilt going into this year. Who's your secondary option, like in the passing game? Because Eli Stowers, probably deservingly so, is tight end 1 in college football, comes back after a great season last year in Nashville, says he wants to go all out one more time, wants to try and help his team win multiple games. And I think that they can, but like, who is that next guy that you trust to come on in and be that dude? Is it going to be Junior Sherrill? They brought in Trent Hudson from Mississippi State. They brought in Chance Fitzgerald. Where did he play last season? Why am I blanking? I think Virginia Tech. They brought in a couple of other different wide receivers. So it's like they have some guys, but is one of them going to be able to kind of take on over games? Their rushing attack also, they got to have somebody that takes pressure off of Diego Pavia. And it's not an insult because Pavia is a really good mobile runner and he plays like Kmart brand Baker Mayfield and he acts like Kmart brand Baker Mayfield, and that's totally fine with me. But like, when your running back is number 2 on the roster behind your quarterback in yards, carries, attempts, yards per play, rushing touchdowns, you got to have that secondary punch. Is Cedric Alexander going to be that dude? I don't know. Like, that's kind of where my brain is on if we're putting them in that 7-5 range, 6-6, 5-7. You got to be able to run the football with somebody else besides Diego Pavia. Defensively, they did lose some talent. Like, I mean, they did, and they lost some veteranship too, which I think is the area that not enough people are paying attention to. You're asking guys who last season were role players to now have to step up as that leader role. You no longer have a DeRicky Wright at the back end of your secondary that's been a part of this entire rebuild underneath Clark Lee. You got some guys he brought in via the portal last season that now have to be guys that fit the Commodore culture. But 4.5 wins, they're going to win against Georgia State because Diego Pavia is not going to allow himself to lose to Georgia State. Like, single-handedly, that game alone, he will not. Like, he will grab a defensive lineman helmet and play defensive tackle if that means he is winning that football game. Because if he single-handedly brought you back in that game and then your defense found a way to crap it at the 1-yard line at the old Turner Field, like, that's where you were. So he's not losing that game. I put so much faith last season in Virginia Tech. Like, I had Virginia Tech in the college football playoff. That was my big, bold prediction, 97% returning production, Kyron Jones, all that, and they crapped the bet against a team that was playing in a stadium that at the time they had to stop renovating so a football game could be played, and they lost in overtime. I'm not buying stock in a Brent Pry anymore. Like, so that to me is 2 wins. One of my bold takes this year is that after the Auburn game, Hugh Freeze is fired because of you lose 4 times to Diego Pavia. And that's a trait that is actually really, really fun for me, is that when Hugh Freeze is laying on his deathbed, the last person he's going to be thinking about is Diego Pavia, because of he beat him 4 times. And he beat him 4 times at 3 different schools. He beat him at Liberty when he was at New Mexico State. He beat him at Auburn when he was at New Mexico State. He went into Jordan-Hare a second year, a year where Auburn needed a quarterback to better their roster, and beat him there. And then he beats him at First Bank Stadium. Like, that is going to live with you forever at this point. And then Missouri's a really interesting one, because they took him to double overtime last year. How that game ended with the big field goal. If that doesn't happen, does Missouri end up going 8-4 that year? And now we're talking about a 7-5 Vanderbilt team. So maybe that happens. LSU, I don't see happening. I don't see happening against South Carolina. I don't think it happens against Alabama's not happening for sure. Like, I can tell you, speaking to people in Tuscaloosa, that game has been circled for a year in big, big, big red permanent marker, Diego Pavia written all over the locker rooms, like the blood of like a calf that you're sacrificing has been thrown all over the Nick Saban statue. Like, it's there with his name. Like, they are not losing that. They would rather lose to Auburn on another kick 6 than lose to Diego Pavia. So
when did you ever think that would be the case? They would be circling Vandy on their schedule.
It shouldn't be that way, but like, it kind of has to be because of what happened last year.
Yeah.
So that's going to be one that I think you have to look at. I still think they're going to get to 5-7 at least. So I would hammer the over. They're going to win a game that we're not expecting right now.
Right.
Now, that's the thing. Which is it? And that's going to, I think, tell you a lot about where these rosters are that you're kind of considering. Hey, are they players or not? Tennessee, what are they going to be? What's going to be South Carolina this year? Because, like, I'm really high on South Carolina, but should I be? Should I not be? Kentucky, I completely agree with you. Like, I left Atlanta already not feeling confident in Kentucky. I can tell you right now, the one program that had no juice at all that day, like going through the motions, get in, get out, I don't want to be here, was Kentucky. That was the only one I felt about. So they should win that one. Bowl eligibility is where I'm kind of sitting right now when it comes to Vandy. Like, you're going to have to see a team that you think is going to be at least decent crawl back into the woodwork just a little bit to get them to that 6-6 range. But 5-7, hit the over.
Love it, Cole. Well, hey, man, let's go ahead and pull up a chair out on the patio at Innisfree, grab a couple of drinks, grab a bite to eat before we go late night over to Egan's. And if it gets weird, man, we might just hit the Boom Boom Room at Rounders at about 1 o'clock in the morning. But, hey, man, I'm not going to pull any punches here. Let's go Alabama over 9.5, bro. Let's get weird here. Ryan Grubb, I think that one of the best hires, period, in all of college football in the offseason was –
the best hire, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, and it very well may be that. Was Kalen DeBoer bringing in Ryan Grubb. Obviously, when Kalen DeBoer took over for Nick Saban, all of Alabama fans and really everybody that follows college football thought that the entire Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb experience was coming to Tuscaloosa. Everybody thought that's what they were getting. And then, of course, Grubb takes the offensive coordinator job with the Seahawks, got a great opportunity there, took his offensive line coach, Scott Huff, with him. And then DeBoer was sitting there scrambling while his roster's being picked over in January and that stupid 30-day transfer rule. And Scott Huff, his offensive line coach and his longtime OC, is gone off to the Seahawks. He's trying to replace them. Well, Ryan Grubb is now back with him. He is now back with his boy DeBoer. And I think that Ty Simpson is more of the type of quarterback that could run this system as opposed to the square peg in a round hole like Milroe was for this system. And I just think, man, that on offense that they're going to be more consistent. They're going to be less feast or famine like they were under Milroe. I mean, you got the entire Jalen Milroe experience last year. I'm not putting everything on Milroe. The offensive line last year had their issues. They were just inconsistent overall. But, like, you got Milroe last year, like, again, a game against, like, LSU where he looked incredible. And then you go in a game against Oklahoma and Norman and he looks awful. Like, it's hard to run a freaking offense when you've got just such highs and such lows. You can ask any offensive coach or any coach in football, period. They'd like to be more consistent, more balance. And I think that's what you're going to get with this offense this year. I think they're going to have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the entire country. Bringing in Isaiah Horton from Miami to pair with Ron Williams and Jeremy Bernard is going to be huge. They've got other guys too and behind them that they're going to be able to play if they have any injuries. I just think they're going to be able to run the ball more. Ryan Grubb has talked about that a lot more this offseason and in fall camp, that they're going to want to run the football. And he's got an offensive line background himself anyway. With this defense, dude, it's nasty. It's just no other way around it. It's nasty. They've got arguably one of the best secondaries in the entire country. Last year, when Keon Sabb went down with his injury, it ended up being one of those kind of blessing in disguises because a dude that's the great white hope, the exciting white, Bray Hubbard, comes in at safety and absolutely balls at safety last year down the stretch. Kane Womack's defense at Bama last year, after the Vandy game, we just talked about Vandy, after that Vandy game in the back half of the season last year, was so much better down the stretch and ended up being one of the top 10 defenses in the country, one of the top 10 scoring defenses in college football last year. Bray Hubbard was on the field a lot during that time and was a huge reason why. So now you've got Keon Sabb back from injury, and then you've got Bray Hubbard that's going to be playing right next to him. Defensively up front, I mean, I think that the starting like four that they're going to have up front is going to be really. Is it going to be some of the biggest names that we saw during the Nick Saban era? Kind of what we talked about with Kirby Smart in Georgia a minute ago. Are they going to have like the top 10 draft pick type guy? Probably not. But like LT Overton and James Smith and Quay Rusall, like guys like that are very solid and really like they're again former 5-stars coming out of high school and stuff. So inside linebacker position too. Getting Deontay Lawson back from injury. I'm a little nervous about like his overall like health. Like, how does that knee hold up? Because that knee injury was nasty against Oklahoma. It was. But they brought in a guy like Nakai Hill-Green from Colorado. I know people think like we bring in a defender from Colorado. How good can he really be?
Good. He's very good.
He's very good.
He's very good.
Yeah, and he originally
Colorado guys.
Exactly. He originally was like went to Michigan out of high school. So when Harbaugh and that crew is recruiting you out of high school to come play linebacker for you, I think you're probably pretty solid. And like you said, yeah, like the Bama coaching staff have been talking a lot about him in this offseason, about how good they landed and hit on him so far during fall camp. The schedule with Bama, I'm looking at it right now, man. And I mean, right out of the gate at Florida State, I actually think that is going to be Florida State's going to be one of the hardest teams to prepare for. Week one, because of what obviously Gus Malzahn, OC. What is that offense going to look like, though, meshing Gus Malzahn's offense with Mike Norvell's? We don't know. They've got transfers again all over the place at Florida State. They got a new defensive coordinator that's going to be running the 3-3-5 defense, and Tony White, who's did an incredible job at Nebraska and Syracuse before Florida State. I think Bama's going to win that game, but I'm not one that's sitting here thinking that that's going to be just an absolute massacre like I'm going to call it the casuals think that will be just because of what Florida State's record was last year. But ULM, Wisconsin, those are 2 wins in Tuscaloosa. They get the bye week, and then they get the showdown, the dance in Athens at night against Kirby Smart in Georgia. That's a tough one, man. I don't honestly at this point, like sitting here saying I think Alabama's going to go in to win in Athens at night. Like, I don't know that they will, man. I right now I'm chalking that up, but that might be one of their L's on the season. And they're going to get Vanderbilt at home, like you said. They're going to destroy Vanderbilt at home. I feel good about that. At Missouri, not an easy game, tough spot, but I think they get Missouri on the road. They get Tennessee at home, revenge game. Then they go, man, you can always look at the schedule, bro, and find who is going to be the Cocktober victim this year. And, man, as a fan, I hope it's not Alabama. But, dude, when I saw when that game was scheduled at October the 25th at Williams-Brice.
Homecoming.
Homecoming.
After Tennessee.
The week after Tennessee. That's a tough spot, bro. It's going into the bye week. And the other thing with that game is that is the 5th game in a row for Bama. These schedules, when you look at it, that is the 5th game in a row before their bye week, before they have their bye week, before LSU. That's going to be a tough spot, man, at South Carolina. If I'm picking a second loss on this schedule, I think it could be that one. And then they get LSU and Bryant-Denny. I think they get that one. That's going to be obviously LSU Bama is just incredible. Oklahoma, revenge game in Bryant-Denny. I think they're going to get that one as well. They get Eastern Illinois, the good old, end of September game, an end of November game against, somebody they can whip up on.
Yeah, one that the Big Ten calls us out for all the time and says that we're just a terrible conference because we scheduled that one in November.
Bro, like, this will be a 2 hour. This will be a 2 hour pod if you let me get on that right now. Like, because I think we probably feel the same way. I think we probably feel the same way about that. Then they go to Jordan Hare, man, where it's just the black voodoo magic, like just It's always brutal to go there, man. I've been there multiple times myself for this game. I've experienced it live and seen it firsthand. Auburn's had some pretty trash teams, and they've taken Alabama to the brink. When Auburn's had really good teams, they beat Alabama in this game. But I'm not sitting here right now and saying, until Auburn shows me, I need to see it with Auburn before I'm going to sit here in early August and predict that Auburn's going to beat Alabama. I need to see Auburn, what they actually look like on the field before I'm going to predict that right now. So I've got Alabama beating Auburn in Jordan-Hare, and I've got Alabama right now going 10-2. Let's get you over to get you over the 9.5.
Well, so you also know about the shaman man that's buried underneath Jordan-Hare Stadium, where his voodoo magic comes up once a year. You know about that.
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
I think that it's not a folklore; it's a reality.
Yeah,
Lance, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud because I think a lot of people look at that Vanderbilt game as the biggest smudge of the season last year because it's Vanderbilt.
Mhm.
It wasn't. To me, the most disgusting loss that Alabama had was the bowl game against Michigan. I'm sorry, it was. You had your starting quarterback, you had multiple starters that decided not to opt out of this game, players that thought they wanted to close out the year with a 10-3 record and keep that double-digit marker alive underneath a new coaching staff. Your quarterback was terrible in this game, and they had no starters, nobody for Michigan, and you lost. To me, that was the lowest point of Alabama last year, is knowing that a Big Ten team that lost to Texas with its starters in beat you with its backups.
Mm-hmm.
That was just inexcusable, which is why I think Courtney Morgan was very adamant this offseason as the GM to make sure that anybody who was a factor for this team long-term was not leaving for the transfer portal or the pros. And I viewed this past offseason for Alabama very similar to Ohio State in 2024. So Ohio State had a slew of guys that could have gone pro. Travian Henderson, Emeka Egbuka, several defensive backs. And they're like, no. You come back here for a minute. And everyone looks at that $20 million that they spent in the transfer portal, in the offseason. Well, they couldn't afford all of that with just 6 transfers. No, they didn't. What they did was they paid for the players to stick around for another year to be the foundation for an organization that believes it was a few missing links away from winning a national championship. And that became the backbone, and they ended up winning a title because of it. That's how I feel about Alabama. They brought back Deontay Lawson because they knew they couldn't replace his production. They brought back Tim Keenan because they knew that they couldn't replace his production. They brought back LT Overton because they knew that he was just scratching the surface. Same thing with Caden Proctor not going in the portal or making sure that Ryan Williams is very happy. Jeremy Bernard having another season to kind of learn the ins and outs of playing in the SEC. They paid for players to come back and be that core for Kalen DeBoer to truly strike in year 2. And also, the Kalen DeBoer thing was driving me nuts because of we all forget this was a coach that just 2 years ago was standing on the sidelines in Houston, Texas, playing for a national title at Washington. And now because he's at Alabama and he loses and he goes 9-3, replacing the greatest coach of all time, he's a bum. Do you hear yourself with how contradictingly stupid you are with some of these takes? No, he's fine. If he replaced anybody else, 9-3 would have been a fine year for most teams. But because of it's Nick Saban and because of it's the greatest coach to ever exist, now we have a problem with it. So let's give him a grace period. Great, honeymoon's over. He gets it. And I think he also gets it because he knows that this is a very talented team. In my opinion, it's the most talented team on paper in the SEC. I have very few questions when it comes to Alabama. And or what's your Alabama homerism coming up? It's guys, you could never tell based off of my videos if I'm an Alabama grad. You really can't, because I try to be as neutral as possible. When they lose, I call them out. When they win, I say it as is. I'm not picking sides here, but I just look at the roster. Find me 3 better receivers that you know that you can trust than Isaiah Horton, Jeremy Bernard, and Ryan Williams in the SEC. You can trust. Guaranteed. Because I think that Isaiah Horton, people forget that he has a relationship with Ty Simpson from high school. They played together back when they were a junior and a sophomore, if I'm not mistaken. So they've known each other for years. He's now coming in to be that third element to the passing attack. With a Jeremy Bernard, who has been a part of this offense for 3 years because he was at Washington and then followed Kalen DeBoer down to Tuscaloosa. And Ryan Williams, still, again, just scratching the surface. The offensive line, I think, is going to be really, really more balanced this year. I like the addition of Cam Dewberry at the new left guard spot. Parker Brailsford coming back, I think, is a good hit. Caden Proctor, I think, is, from a freak standpoint, just an anomaly at left tackle. And I do think that even though you may have some questions when it comes to the left tackle spot, the right tackle spot. I still think that Wilkin Formby is probably going to get the job done. Jaden Roberts is a pretty good pulling guard, so I think he'll be great in run blocking sets and opening up avenues. There's a lot to like about where the defense is as a whole. Like I was speaking to somebody in the spring, and he told me, if you look at this Alabama secondary, they're going to be guys that you thought were stars last year that are fighting for reps on the field.
Yeah.
And I like that because of what it says is, you know that if you are not doing your job, the guy behind you is almost as good as you, that he can come on in and you won't miss it.
Hey, Cole, to that point, like Clint Lamb, who covers Alabama, does a wonderful job covering Alabama. Yeah, we're talking the other day, and he was saying, dude, that Cam Calhoun that transferred in from Utah, corner, he's a dog, transferred in from Utah, is pushing folks at the corner spot, and that Zay Mincy, who was was a 5-star, one of the top DBs in the country coming out of high school, that he's pushing for playing time too at the safety spot. Like you said, he would start about anywhere in the country, but there's Bray Hubbard and Keon Sabb there. And they're trying to find ways to just get these guys on the field because they are pushing these guys so much in fall camp right now.
Yeah, like the Husky role, I think, is a little bit too rich to play someone like a Cam Calhoun because he's not big enough for that spot. But like, he's gonna be on the field, and like, it's so great because if you can interchange certain matchups to where, hey, we got bigger wide receivers that we got to go up against. Okay, so throw a Dijon Lee, the 5-star coming out this year, out there, and we're gonna take Damani Jackson off on this play. Like, you can do that with the secondary, which makes them so lethal. The quarterback position is what makes or breaks this team.
Yeah.
But like, for me personally, and I brought this up when it came to Texas, like, you don't need Arch to do much to still get to that 10-win marker. Ty Simpson needs to be average. Like if you get Greg McElroy, AJ McCarron version of Ty Simpson, that's good enough to go 10-2. And that shouldn't be the standard. The standard should be to win the SEC, to get the first round bye, to win a national title. But Greg McElroy won a national title. AJ McCarron won a national title. Like, they have the pieces around them to where it's like, you feel like that if you just do that, you're in contention. Now, if you do more than that, you're really in contention. Like,
hey,
Cole,
to your point, I told this I was a guest on a podcast here recently, and they kept harping on the first-year starter at Alabama, first-year starter quarterback at Alabama, and I told him, I said, did you know this, that every single national championship that Nick Saban won while at Alabama was with a first-year starting quarterback, and the only one that you could kind of question on that would be, so it was every national championship they won under Nick Saban was a first-year starting quarterback, except A.J. McCarron, because in 2012, when they went back-to-back, he was still the starter. In that one. But yeah, so Greg McElroy, A.J. McCarron, Jake Coker, Mac Jones, they all won national championships under Alabama when they were their first year starting. And then I'm no offense to Jalen Hurts, I don't give him the credit for winning the national championship against Georgia. Sure. Like, they don't win that game without Tua Tagovailoa coming in and winning that game as a freshman. So literally every national championship except one that Nick Saban won at Alabama was under a first-year starter. I agree. Ty Simpson just needs to be a point guard, man. Just distribute the ball to the guys that are open and just make the right fundamental plays. Don't get you beat. Don't have catastrophic turnovers like Milroe would at times last year. You don't have to be spectacular. Just be solid and let the team around you do it. Let all these playmakers around you do what they're supposed to do.
Now, I am going to tell you guys something which is going to be really heartbreaking for the Crimson Tide fans. So I'm going to hold your hand when I say this.
Okay.
Ever since 2021, there's been a top 10 upset by a team in the top 10 against an unranked team. There's only one game this year that features a top 10 team going up against an unranked team for a top 10 upset. It's Florida State. So there's reasons to say, yeah, listen, 2021, Virginia Tech beat number 10 UNC. 2022, Florida beat number 9 Utah. 2023, Duke beat number 7 Clemson. Yeah, last season, Georgia Tech beat number 7 Florida State. Like, so again, there's history behind this. Like, there's a metric. You may break the streak, but this is why I'm also not.
Oh, you just scared me. You just scared me even more on that game, bro. Like I said, I'm telling you, man, I've been nervous about that game, and people think I'm nuts, but
it's crazy. Now, and I'm sure we're gonna talk about LSU, so I'll save the staff for a little bit. But like, still, like, for the Alabama, if you get point guard facilitator at quarterback, and honestly, it doesn't need to be Ty Simpson. It could be Austin Mack, who's been in the system for 3 years. If Keelan Russell is as advertised and he has come on in and just drastically impressed. If there's any slowdown from either of the two veterans, throw him to the fire. Let's see what he's got. Because of guess what? He is going to be your long-term play. Like, they brought him in not to be like this David Cornwell. They brought him in to be the next Tua Tagovailoa type. And by the way, when it comes to Jalen Hurts, he got the redemption story in the SEC championship game. So it's like, and by the way, that was the one time where as an actual Alabama fan, like I actually teared up because of just, it was the best moment just to see the full redemption story. And then Nick get all choked up on the sideline, realizing who his quarterback was. Jalen Hurts is my favorite Alabama player of all time, which is why I claim him. Like that, like I don't even care like that. I hide that stat line. To me, he is the ultimate Alabama player. But back to this year's team, Cam Calhoun is somebody I'm watching this year. I think he is going to be a breakout player. I think Isaiah Horton could end up having better stats than Ryan Williams. Like, I don't
he's
think
nasty, bro. He's when you watch his film on some of his plays at Miami and stuff, dude, bro, he's going to be nasty in this offense.
Like, I could see a Jameson Williams-esque type renaissance where it's a 1-year rental. He gets to be a top 15 status player and ends up going on a run toward very much first round buzz. I think Alabama's safe. Like, if I get quality quarterback play, I think that they're in Atlanta. Like, I genuinely just think that the roster is too good top to bottom for them not to be in Atlanta. And I have them winning the SEC. Like, so I'm absolutely hammering it. And you can call me a homer if you want to, whatever. I think that they will go 10-2, but they're going to go 11-2 with the SEC victory over whoever is the other opponent. I don't know where that second loss is just yet, but I do have one loss. And I people are going to hate this. But if LSU is as good as people think that they are, LSU win every single year that LSU has been to a national title game. They have beaten Alabama in Tuscaloosa. 2003, 2007, 2011, 2019. If you think that LSU is good enough, and I think that LSU is good enough to win a national title, they're going to beat them in Tuscaloosa. So that's one loss. I don't know where the second one's coming just yet. It may be South Carolina, but that is one loss I'm telling you right now I think it's going to happen.
All right, we'll do one last one, then we'll get you out of here because we know you got to go. We've done so many overs, and I'm gonna take an under here finally. This win total is set at 8.5. I actually personally I have this team in my predictions. Spoiler alert to everyone listening out there. I have them going 9-3. The win total is 8.5 though, and if you take the under, you're getting plus 140 back on that. And if there is a team that I am going to predict to underperform, it's going to be the aforementioned Brian Kelly and LSU Tigers. Now, me being a Notre Dame fan, that's probably a lot of hate coming out for Brian Kelly, and I get that. I understand that.
Let's start there.
I think the defense should continue to improve under Blake Baker. I think that's a given. The offense should be just as good, if not better, than last season with a more experienced Garrett Nussmeier back there. I just look at their schedule, and I look at, K Ford ratings were big on him. They're already projected underdogs in 4 games this year. I think they lose the week 1 battle of the Death Valleys. I think Brian Kelly is doing his thing where he's putting a ton of stock into that week 1 game. And he's done it the past couple of years. And if they go to Clemson and they lose that game, it's like, how does the team bounce back from losing yet their 4th straight week 1 game? They're not. I know what you just said here about Bama. They're not winning at Bama unless Nuss turns into Joe Burrow. Like, it's just not happening in my eyes. Like, I just don't see it this year. I'm high on Bama with you guys. Road games at Ole Miss, at Oklahoma. Can they win those? Sure. But, Ole Miss is going to be looking for revenge after what happened last year in Death Valley. So they still have that road game at Vandy we mentioned earlier in the episode, which we saw what Diego Pavia and the boys could do at home last season. So I'm not, I just say if you want to take that under 8.5 and get that plus money back, it's just kind of Brian Kelly's track record while he's been at LSU. Can they go 11-1 and go to the SEC championship game and go to the playoff and get to the semifinals? Sure. But if there's a team that I'm going to doubt, it's going to be Brian Kelly and LSU.
And Cole, before you get rolling here, this is probably the team that Tyler and I differ on probably the most so far.
Really?
So far in our team predictions, I'm very high on this LSU team, but I understand like Tyler's reservations on it. I do. I'm just letting people know this is the team that he and I have gone back and forth on probably the most so far this offseason.
Well, Tyler, do you still consider Brian Kelly to have the all-time wins at Notre Dame, or are you one of those that said, nope, that record is done because if he cheated? Like, which
No, I mean vacated wins, whatever. Like it doesn't matter. He still won the games on the field.
I say, because if you're one of those people, it's like, oh, we already know that there's some problems and some deep-hated disdain at that spot. You're not wrong. Like, you're not. I will say, Lance, we're getting to a point of where LSU is looking really good going into that week 1 matchup because everyone has kind of turned away from LSU and said Clemson's winning this game. It's like, we're really going to make them the underdog. We're going to make LSU the underdogs. Really? We're really going to do this. Okay, fine. So be it. Easy money for me. I get what you're saying. I do. There's just 3 elements that I look at going into this offseason that made me change my stance on LSU. I fully am convinced. And people don't realize when because people just want to go ahead and just immediately come to conclusions without looking at the tape. I understand where you come from with Garrett Nussmeier. The turnovers are inexcusable. They are. But you look at the numbers last season. Garrett Nussmeier threw the ball 115 more times than Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, and they all had the same amount of interceptions. The reason he threw the ball 115 times more is because there was no run game. Their run game was dreadful last year. They were one-dimensional offenses in almost every single matchup, pedestrian at times against South Carolina, against UCLA in their own backyard, the USC game, the Alabama game. So, like, you kind of force 13 to have to do it all through the year. And so that made it to where we look at his numbers and we say, well, he threw for 4,000 yards and he had 12 interceptions. But it's like, if he didn't do that, they would have been 6-6. Like, that's where we are. So he's going to have a better supporting cast around him at the wide receiver spot. The offensive line scares me because you are having 4 new starters being broken on it. But I think that the running back room is going to be better. I do think that Caden Durham is going to be more efficient on the ground, moving the sticks and making you a multifaceted offense. The other thing is that you have to believe, if you do think that LSU is good, that we are going to see the year 2 growth of the quarterback spot. Because we saw it with Joe Burrow, and it was with the same offensive coordinator and Mike Essinger. And then we saw it with Jaden Daniels, who went and had Mike Denbrock. And you have to believe that you're going to see it with Garrett Nussmeier and Joe Sloan in year 2. And I do. I do think that there is enough there to think that he is going to be a quarterback that constantly grows. He is going to be somebody that we talk about, maybe not as the most talented player in the SEC, but he is going to be the most consistent player at the position. Constantly 300-yard games, 67% completion rating, 155.2 passer rating every single game. Like that's what we can expect. The second thing that I look at, this defense still had a remnants of what went wrong with Matt House last year. Like, I compare teams in the SEC when they're getting new coaching staffs or new personnel members to like when you buy a used house. Like, for about a year, you're so used to having some old senses or, remnants of the previous owner that lived there. It takes a full year for you to kind of weed them out of the entirety of life. Like, you're just going to get used to that until you finally kind of tear it down to the studs and build it in your own image. Well, that's what Blake Baker had to do last year. He had to get rid of a lot of these secondary players. He had to make sure that he upgraded on the interior of the defensive line. He had to get better at the pass rushing position. And they did. I mean, they sent literally all 4 starters in the secondary packing last offseason. And they went out and they added in AJ Halsey from Houston and Tamarcus Cooley from NC State and Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech. And they have DJ Pickett, who's a 6'5" freak that looks like an all-pro. And he's 19 years old, probably the best quarterback prospect they've had since Derek Stingley. And they got better in the front 7 with Jack Pyburn coming on in and Patrick Payton coming on in and Sadir Mitchell for depth. So, like, they've added in pieces to now this isn't a Matt House defense with a new play caller. This is a Blake Baker defense with new players. That's where we're kind of at in the transitional period. So I don't think we're going to see the same defense that struggled with mobile quarterbacks last season. I think that we are going to see better play on the back end against explosive plays. We are going to see more turnovers. It won't be the version of DBU that we were so accustomed to, but it will be better. And the third thing is, I just feel like that this team, if they do 2 things this year, stop the run and run the football, not only are they going to be in every game, they're going to have the advantage in every game. Because of the wide receiver room is a who's who of what do you want. Speed, okay. Xavier Thomas, Barian Brown, size, Chris Hilton, physicality, Nick Anderson, Aaron Anderson in the slot. Your tight end position kind of got upgraded with Bauer Sharp and Donovan Green. from what you were going into the spring with after Mason Taylor decided to go off to the pros. Your defense is going to be able to make offenses one-dimensional, and you're going to force them to pass. And you have some of these major matchups in your backyard. The Florida game is not in the Swamp. It's in Death Valley. The South Carolina game is in Death Valley. And that's a game that I can tell you South Carolina fans are salivating to go to. Because of the Nicky Manwari touchdown should have counted. South Carolina should have been 10-2, and they should have been in the college football playoff. And that game alone cost them a spot in the playoff. Like, yes, we can talk about the Alabama comeback that should have happened, but they didn't win that game. They should have won the LSU game. But that's a night game in Death Valley. It's the western sky setting out, the western sun setting in the sky. It's where dreams truly come to die. Like, it's that environment for South Carolina. The toughest games that you have, the Texas A&M game where you weren't prepared for Marcel Reed and the mobility, that's in Death Valley, a place that Texas A&M doesn't win. Like, all of these advantages for you are at home. So, like, let's say you lose the Clemson game. You lose the Alabama game on the road. You're 10-2. You're still in the playoff. Like, 10-2 is still where you can be, to where it's a double-digit win season. And as long as you get the right matchup, you're going to continue to win. Like, Penn State last year had a couple of games where they didn't feel like a top 4 team. They definitely felt like there were some misfires and some inadequacies with the passing attack, but they got the good matchup. They played SMU in round 1 at home. They played Boise State in round 2, and they got to face off against Notre Dame. So depending on your matchup in the playoff, that's as beneficial as your actual schedule. So maybe LSU does end up going 10-2. They end up being a team that we talk about as a little underwhelming in the big marquee matchups against national title contenders, because Alabama and Clemson, I think, both are. But yet still, they get the short end of the stick, and they get the luck of the draw, and they're playing an Oregon team that was minuscule on offense. And then in the second round, they're playing a Clemson team that they already know how to prepare for. And now they're in the semifinals of the college football playoff. Like, I think all those things are possible for LSU this year. And they kind of have to be, because of Brian Kelly's not going to get bought out of his contract after this season. But after this season, if they don't go to the playoff, yeah, we can start having a legit conversation, because they don't handle this well down in Baton Rouge. Like, they fired Ed Orgeron, Mr. Louisiana himself, taking off his shirt and turning into Farmer Fran, twisting the nipples on the sidelines because of he wasn't getting the job done. Like they don't handle this very well. And it's because of the expectations that Nick Saban set when he was the head coach, and what was the determination of what this program is supposed to be.
If they get to the CFP, that's fine by me, as long as it is on the road in the first round in South Bend.
You want that? So you're not the only person that wants that. Like, I
think everybody wants to see that.
Think everybody wants that. Here's my theory, though. I think for that to happen, you would need Notre Dame to go 11-1.
Yeah.
I think if they were 10-2, if both were 10-2, it would go to Death Valley.
Yeah.
I just think it would go to Death Valley, but it wouldn't shock me. Like, it wouldn't. I think that I have so many Notre Dame friends that still to this day are like, I am pulling for LSU to get the 9 seed, so we get the 8 seed, so we get to host them. Like, that's the only reason they're doing it. Like, I hate that mother effer so much that I just want him to come back here and lose to Marcus Freeman.
Cole,
I want it to happen.
Cole, we did a Notre Dame preview with Brian Driscoll, who's one of the best, man, from Irish Breakdown, and he told some incredible Brian Kelly stories, and we put them out on clips. And dude, Notre Dame fans just feasted.
Of course
It was pretty wild, man. But the only thing I want to add on LSU is I agree 100% with you. The phrase that I've been using is, like, I agree with the part of the defense, the run game. I think LSU, for the first time in Brian Kelly's tenure at LSU, they're going to play a lot more complementary football, and they're going to run the football more they're going to play better on the defensive side. It's not all going to be on the passing game and the quarterback like it was with Nuss last year and Jaden Daniels the year before. So LSU is very intriguing this year, man, because I agree. They've got the talent to win it all, but I also don't disagree with the fact that if they win 8-4, I wouldn't necessarily be shocked. And, yeah, I believe Brian Kelly would be in some pretty hot waters at that time.
Nah, I won't be shocked either way. I won't. I will, but I won't, which is weird, because I will, but I won't. But it's Brian Kelly, it's LSU, but it's also like you're too good not to get at that level. Like, South Carolina fans are giving me crap because of, like, I have them as the number 11 seed, like the number 11 team in the country. Like, we're gonna go 10-2 this year. It's like, all right, let's pump the brakes a little bit. you don't need to act this way. LSU fans have to act this way because if they understand what the expectations are, you need to be better than what I'm projecting for you, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Cole, this was an absolute blast, man.
Yeah.
Can't thank you enough for coming on. Let the people know where they can find you once again. Let them know what things Chris and the guys over at SEC Unfiltered have cooking this season.
Yeah, so if you want to go ahead and spam me all the time on my social media, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson. You can hate my takes literally in my DMs. I have plenty of Tennessee fans to attest to that right now. We're finishing up our season previews for the SEC Unfiltered channel. Our 3 biggest game stretches is what I'm working on right now. X Factor players are coming out next week. The actual predictions are coming out later on this week. My actual explanation video just dropped recently on the top 25 teams for 2025. In my opinion, going into this year, we have our college football playoff selection show on Monday. If you want to check that out, Chris and I will be unveiling our 12 teams. And we got a bunch of other content that's going to be bleeding out the eyeballs, especially when it comes to season previews, because we do all 16 teams. We do all reactions. We do Sunday Fun Day every single week. We have 2 live streams at 8 o'clock every single Monday and Thursday, so check it out there. And as always, if you want to give me a follow, it's at Mr. Cole Thompson on social media. I'm basically there everywhere, except on TikTok, which is at Cole Thompson CFB. Because somebody, and I don't understand this, and it pisses me off, who is going by Mr. Cole Thompson? Like, honestly, who stole my mononym? Like, who did that? Because that's what I've been known as for the last 8 years on social media. And somebody decided to steal it from me on TikTok.
Well, good stuff, man. Appreciate you coming on, man. We already can't wait to have you on again sometime. Appreciate you guys listening in, man. We know it was a little bit of a longer episode, but this is the SEC, and we just, it just means more, like the moniker says. So, again, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and X. For Cole Thompson and Lance Barton, I'm Tyler Noe. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time.